Okay, we are back again. Welcome everybody to the We Quit Booze Brothers. This is a podcast where we try to have honest, no fluff conversations about our various experiences of quitting alcohol. And with me, as always, is my brother Matt. Hello, Matt.
Good morning, Mark. Yeah, we are back. We have had a 2-week break, I think. So sorry for everyone who is maybe waiting for a video to come out a bit quicker or a podcast. We, as is life, gets busy, and unfortunately, we couldn't get together last weekend. So we're pleased to be recording again, and hope that this is an enjoyable one for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm in fact over in sunny Mallorca at the moment. I was hoping that you'd be able to see all the view out the window, but the sun is distracting that. But the fact there is sun, maybe that's if you've been living in the UK or most of Europe for the last few weeks, you'll be wondering what the sun actually looks like. So yeah, quite pleased to be here at the moment, not going to lie. But anyway, right. So we're going to carry on with our Man Gets Sober series. And in for this conversation, we're largely going to focus on the impact that alcohol has on your sleep. It's something that we have talked about in the past, but it's such a big subject. And as we will discover, it underpins so much of your life in terms of your physical well-being, in terms of your mental well-being. And it's a weird one because when you drink alcohol, I think sometimes you tend to think that you are getting good sleep. But as we will discover, that's not necessarily always the case. But before we get to that, the book builds up in a way that, first of all, discusses your journey almost, Matt, into the point
Yep.
where you felt you were drinking too much. And it's quite interesting because there is this sort of progression between you started smoking weed, you talk about smoking marijuana, as pretty much everybody did. I don't think I know anybody that hasn't done that when you're growing up, and a lot of people do. And I think there's quite a lot of body of evidence to suggest that marijuana is probably almost certainly not as harmful as alcohol. Anyway, that's another conversation. But that sort of progressed as it does for a lot of us. And, that evolved into taking ecstasy, and that evolved into cocaine. And there was this sort of trajectory journey that you plot in your book, which I don't want to go into loads of detail because this is a podcast about alcohol.
Yeah.
But there was a build up, and it appears that in your book you might be suggesting that these were kind of gateways into behavior that evolved that you weren't necessarily conscious of at the time and kind of got sucked into it. So I just wondered very briefly anything you want to say about that, your thoughts on that period now that you look back, because you're obviously, that's the dim and distant past now.
Yeah, it was fucking brilliant. No, I'm joking. No. On a serious note, the reality is, it's in the book. I did follow. I don't know. This awful. I hate this word gateway drug, but when I look back on it, it probably is the right term. But yeah, I did have the starting on with marijuana very much in my university days when I sort of left private school. I went to a state school at 16. The kind of doors opened to this other world, and I embraced it. I turned pro very young, and marijuana did it for me. I liked it. It was that instant hit. It for many years it was my sort of number one go to, which is a terrible thing to say, I know, but it's true. And then I grew up in the 90s, and certainly in London, the sort of house and techno scene was a very big thing, and I hit it at my prime. All my friends, it's what we listened to, and it was the golden era of clubbing, and clubbing involved ecstasy, and hey, guess what, that's what I did. So that was that. And then I actually went through quite a long period at university, funnily enough, where there was no what we traditionally term as hard drugs. I was in the countryside actually at university, but believe it or not, and really it was very much weed and alcohol, so a lot of alcohol. And then things progressed when I started working, and cocaine come onto the scene and everything. And I think we could talk about that another time, but you know, I had my battles with it. It was a big problem in my life, and there's no doubt about that. I didn't see that problem for quite some time, because the reality is, as we've spoken many times, is that there is a period of high enjoyment. People don't take drugs because they're idiots. It's the train spotting thing again, isn't it? They take it because it's fucking brilliant, and for a long period it is, and then that takes over. But what I want to sort of say really with this is my journey was classic, because at the end of the day, alcohol held my hand throughout the whole of it. Reality is, I don't believe, maybe with weed, but all the other drugs, there's always alcohol involved. And that's the legal one, the easy one to get hold of, the one you're encouraged to take, the one you take with your parents, the one you take with your friends, the one you can have at lunchtime, evening, whenever, and it's a slow burner, as we all know. The people listening, watching will know that. It gets hold of you. And then, when I got rid of all the drugs, that was the one that really, really gripped me. And it was the one that, you know, where everything went wrong, really. So that's important to know. But yeah, it's all in the book in much more detail. There's a few amusing stories about some of the things I got up to. But yeah, it was really, really part of
Yeah.
my youth.
The cocaine thing was kind of interesting and weird, because it's a bit strawberries and cream, isn't it?
Oh,
The
massively.
phrase "a drink is too wet without one." Cocaine and alcohol just seem to go together
Yeah. It's the Big Mac and
inextricably.
fries, the Laurel and Hardy. You just, they have to go together.
And I think, in a way, for anybody that's succumbed to that habit, when you drink, because the chemistry in your brain changes, the cocaine, it's like adding rocket fuel of a sort to your drinking experience. And you mention it in the book, actually, which I thought was very interesting, is that it's such a lethal combination, because the more you drink, the more you want to take cocaine. The more you take cocaine, the more you're able to drink. It somehow seems to prolong your ability to drink alcohol. It sort of suppresses it. Weirdly, it just seems to, it obviously it's terrible for you and it's lethal, but in the moment it appears to be this very powerful. So when you combine two incredibly addictive substances, it's hardly surprising. So we will come back to that,
Yeah.
definitely. But
Me
let's
too.
move on to the next chapter in the book, which is the observations, chapter 3. And I've made some notes, because this one goes through all the things you learned through this journey. It's probably one of the, there's lots in this book, but this is one of the sort of fascinating ones. And the first thing, I think, which is kind of interesting, that it's the first thing that you pick out, is you call it KIP, which is the British slang colloquial term for sleep, if anybody
Yeah.
didn't know. So there you go, rather than that. And it was interesting. You said, not long ago, I attended an hour-long lunch and learn session at work. There was no lunch, to be honest. I didn't learn much, but the topic was of interest to me. And the topic was sleep, the key element to well-being. So if I just read you this passage from the book, and then we can maybe have a
Yeah.
chat. You say, let me make this clear. Alcohol fucks with your sleep big time. It's the side effect that all drinkers ignore or seem to dismiss as unimportant. I'm not talking about when you've had a few or a lot and you fall asleep very quickly, but that 4 a.m. period when it wakes you up. I can tell you this for a fact. Since stopping drinking, I sleep like a king. The difference is incredible. I can't emphasize enough how much of a difference it has made. The reality is that even a couple of glasses of wine can affect your sommeil. Is that a
Yeah.
French word?
Somebody. Yeah. Yeah,
Just say
that's it.
French. Yeah. So I know we've spoken about this, and if you've ever talked to anybody who has quit, they'll just talk about the quality of sleep. But yeah, it's so talk to me a little bit about that, because yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean,
Really,
we can go into, yeah, the deepness of it in terms of what it actually is, and we've mentioned this, you know, alcohol effectively, or ethanol, it depresses the nervous system, and it has a sedative effect, so it makes you fall asleep faster. So we've all been there, you know, you've had a load to drink, you got in, you hit the pillow, bam, you're asleep. But the thing is your body, instead of doing anything else, it's concentrating on getting rid of that alcohol. And because it's a diuretic, it basically creates a huge amount of urine. So your metabolism is going nuts. So it's creating its urine. So that's why often you get this enormous desire to pee. Um, can be embarrassing when you're with your girlfriend. That's a story in the book. Maybe read that one another time. So yeah, so the thing about it is twofold. So because your metabolism is creating all this urine, it's taking liquid out of your body, it's dehydrating you. So that's why you wake up with that incredible thirst. It also has this really crazy thing, which is called the rebound effect, which is effectively where your body has concentrated so hard on breaking down the alcohol whilst you're technically asleep that it actually gives you a boost of adrenaline when it's kind of sort of semi finished, and this wakes you up. And how many times of how many times did I lie there at like 3, 4 in the morning? It could be on a Tuesday morning, it could be on a Sunday morning, and you're going through that panic, that fear, that worry about all the things that's going on with your life in the world. And the problem is that majority of them are probably caused by drinking. There is just, honestly, the difference is mind blowing. For me, it's just been incredible because, you know, even if you do wake up and there are occasions where, I think, was it last night? Not last night, not before. I woke up around 1:30, like no real reason, and then tossed and turned a bit, went back to sleep, and then woke up about 6. And so, maybe not the best night's sleep I've had, but it wasn't a problem because you're clear and you're clean, and and that's the rarity. Whereas most nights, I sleep well. There's no problem. It's you wake up and you can face the day, and even if you haven't slept well, your body has everything it needs to cope. There's a reason behind it that is not to do with a foreign body you've put inside you. It's maybe you just didn't need that much sleep that night. And it really is utterly incredible. And I cannot, as I say, that's why it's at the beginning, because I can't emphasize it enough. It really, with everything, with sleep, becomes a better behavior, becomes a different approach, like going to work now. Honestly, Monday mornings, I used to dread Monday mornings. I used to hate them. I used to think because it was my job, because no one likes work on a Monday, because it's not that. It's because you're not sleeping properly. It's because you're numbing yourself by drinking. It's because you're ignoring the fact that you need to work, until the fact that you wake up on Monday morning and, oh shit, you've got to go to work. Now I don't, I just, it's another day, but it's another good day. It's another day when I will get up and be action and function. And often I run on a Monday mornings now. So I'm out the door at 7:30 in the morning, just a half an hour run. I feel great. And I can attack anything. So yeah, long-winded, I know, all over the place, I know, but yeah, sleep for me, real big one.
yeah, it's funny as well. I think what I notice is, when you look back, how you normalize feeling shit, feeling compromised, being easily triggered, emotionally, you're not in a good place. I used to get frustrated, angry, anxious. And since I quit drinking, because like you, just sleep so well, and I've now normalized that feeling of, I don't really ever get that. I don't ever get, I don't, I'm much, my mood is much more even keel. I don't get I don't get as angry as I used to. I don't get as emotionally triggered as I used to, except on the rare occasions when I'm sleep deprived. I notice it like maybe after a long haul flight, or if there's we've had one or two occasions in our house where there's been parties nearby and I just haven't been able to sleep. And then all of the next day, just things are a bit more annoying. You're a little less able to cope. Your brain
Mm.
doesn't quite process thoughts as quickly or as easily or as efficiently. Everything's hard work, and it kind of reminds me when you go, "Oh yeah, that's what that was." I remember that. And actually, just so sort of really to make the point, you talk about this in your here. You say, first of all, you wake up desperate for a piss. Or you don't wake up for a pee and you pee on your girlfriend. True story, but this was no golden shower. And yes, before you ask, I slept in the wet patch. So there you go. There's the reference to that. In short, your metabolism has created a ton of urine and you need to get rid of it. Secondly, your body is as dry as a camel's asshole. Due to the diuretic delights of booze, you tend to urinate huge amount and are then presented with a hangover. Hangover is essentially dehydration, your body screaming out for fluids. Finally, and this one's the real fucker, is where what's commonly termed as the rebound effect, which you touched upon. Your body is so delighted that it's dealt with the depressant effect of alcohol that it gives you a little boost of adrenaline, which wakes you up. Right, I'm done with sorting out this shit that you've put me in. Now you can wake up and have a good old worry about everything. And you say, hello, anxiety. And it's just go on to talk about that. The adrenaline can also create a scary racing heartbeat. I remember occasions when I've woken up with my ticker going 10 to the dozen. It felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. Be honest, how many of you have woken up with these symptoms? Heart thumping away, desperately needing a pee, but can't be bothered to get out of bed and wishing you had wishing you had water, the whole kit and caboodle, la totale. Then to top it off, you start shitting yourself about tomorrow's PowerPoint slides that you should probably have finished before you left the office, but decided to get out and go and get smashed instead. Now it's 4 a.m., you're awake, you're fucked, you're consumed with worry, panic, and yet more worry. And that's something which I've talked about. You've had that sort of, because I would describe having anxiety when I used to drink. But I don't think I did have anxiety. I just had that. I had
Mm.
that. I'm not ready for this week.
Yeah.
Monday morning would arrive as a classic example. You'd be tired, you'd be sleep deprived, you'd have woken up, and just the world seems to hit you like a brick wall, like a terrifying, overwhelming, anxiety inducing brick wall. And just that in itself, just removing. So if you break this down, there's the mental anguish that you get from being on the back foot because you haven't slept. And it's really terrifying.
Yeah.
And there's just, we'll go on to talk about this actually in a second, which is the importance of REM sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
um,
The eye movement, not the
shiny happy
musician, not the
people.
band. Yeah. We
Yeah,
were
yeah,
big in the
yeah,
90s,
yeah,
2000s.
yeah. I mean, REM as a group are and were pretty important, but in this instance, we are talking about REM, the rapid eye. But you said, so on that one, you've said here, according to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, a study depriving rats of REM sleep significantly shortened their lifespan from 2 or 3 years to just 5 weeks. Rats deprived of all sleep cycles lived only 3 weeks. The importance of REM is attributed to the fact that during this phase, your brain exercises important neural connections, which are key to mental and overall well-being and health. So what I was going to say is when you break this down, if you drink and you sleep, you get the anxiety because you're tired, because you haven't slept, and you get the sort of dread of what you're about to face. So you're compromised, you're on the back foot. You're also depriving what is the body's natural period to regenerate. Cells are regenerated. The brain needs to sort of recalibrate. It's the body's
Yeah.
natural process of putting you back and ready. So that's why human beings sleep. So
Yeah.
you're
It's that dream phase as well. Often like now, you coming out of sleep and waking up. That's when you often go through that dream phase. And just you don't get that when you're in that alcohol fog, having had a terrible night's sleep, and you know, that it is just so incredibly important.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, you go on to say, drugs don't help either, and that's, clearly, I mean, that really does compound it. So if anybody, and there will be people on here who, are doing both of those things, because like we said
Yeah,
earlier, it is a bit strawberries and cream. Cocaine does appear to be everywhere. It's very, and I've got teenage and sort of early, boys in their early, sort of late teenage years and early, 20s, and they tell me, it's everywhere. It's very difficult if you've got kids, if you live on planet Earth. It's, unless you sort of in a Buddhist monastery somewhere in the middle of the Tibetan mountains, you're probably gonna, and even then, maybe even then, maybe particularly then, I don't know. So it's a double-edged sword. And then I suppose just to sort of finish off, the conversation really, it's I think, sleep is the more and more you lean into what does happen when you quit alcohol is that the one good decision to stop drinking leads to, as I've said this before, it leads to lots of other really good decisions, which will involve probably more exercise, better nutrition. You start to look better, so you start to take care of your appearance, which involves, exercise and sleep and I talk about reading a lot. I read so much more now than I ever did. So I've learned an awful lot more. In fact, I'm going to butcher this now, so I better be careful. I think there was an acronym I read about recently, and I put it in my book actually, which is happiness is the result of this thing called SPIRE. It starts with S stands for spirituality, so you don't necessarily have to believe in God, but just some sort of awareness that maybe there is something more to all of this, that everything has a purpose, and that can't stop with human beings. The P stands for your physical health. The I stands for your intellectual curiosity. R is for relationship, and E is for emotions. And if you can kind of align all of those things, happiness is a sort of byproduct of that. Happiness isn't something you do, it's something that happens as a result of your outlook, as a result of your habits and your behaviors, and the things that you focus on. And when you remove alcohol, that's a lane that opens up to you. It's a lane that just suddenly becomes clear, and one that you can travel along. Whereas when you're drinking, you're prevented from it. You just can't, and it fucks with everything.
yeah. You're robbing yourself of sleep. I mean, just two things I wanted to finish on my side is, if you look at, you know, like my kids, they can be in a bad mood because they haven't slept enough. And you think when you're an adult, you get the opportunity to, you don't want to go to bed at 3 a.m. and things like that if you're really in a normal life. So why would you tip a load of booze in the equation and ruin the sleep? But we did it. We've done it. The second thing I just wanted to touch on was this week just gone. We had a friend over, a friend of my wife's who I haven't seen for a very long time, and she came to stay a night with us here in Paris. She is French actually, but lives in the UK. Has lived there since the 80s. Lovely, lovely lady, and she was talking about her husband, and he drinks a bottle of wine every night, like every night drinks a bottle of wine, and she's kind of just given up. Do you know what I mean? She's like, fine, that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. I'm not going to get involved with it. And fair enough. Don't judge anyone. That's everyone has that freedom of choice. But on Tuesday morning, I had a have it every month. It's a project review meeting, and it's with the whole of the team that I work with, and it's with the the CIO for Europe. So he's a senior guy, really 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 nice guy. And last week, I focus seemed to be on me for about 5-10 minutes, and that was absolutely fine. That's I'm there to do the job I do, and I'm there to answer the questions that he has, and he also has interesting input, and I respect that, and it's great. But I was thinking, if I'd still been drinking, or if I'd been that chap who'd had the bottle of wine the night before, I would have been just feeling awful. I would have been anxious before it. I would have been thinking, oh, don't focus on me, let's hope I don't get grilled. And yet when you've had the sleep, when you've slept well, you're clear, your body is, you're just normal, you're you can deal with it.
Yeah,
And I
no,
did.
definitely. Yeah.
The
I
difference is
mean,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, no, funny you should say that. I mean, you might, because we do this podcast, I think sometimes people assume that you're very comfortable talking in public, et cetera, et cetera. It's something I've really struggled with. I was the CEO of my own business for a long time. And in that role, I regarded that people would look to me for the leadership, that I had to speak in public, that I had to
Mm.
sound assured. And I struggled with it lots of times. I found it overwhelming, particularly when I was drinking. Now, I wouldn't say that I've completely solved it. There are times when I get social anxiety. There are times when I feel, get the heart pumping in you. Weirdly, if you've ever been in a meeting and there's like 20 of you that have never met and they do that thing where they say, let's go around the table and introduce yourselves, and no one's listening to anybody else because you're just waiting for it to get
I'm
to
going to
you. And
say
you think, what am I
something.
going to say? Things like that, everyone can relate. But since I've stopped drinking, and in fact, I've written a book about this that Matt is reading at the moment. That will be
Yeah.
released. The book that I've written, I think, is quite a good complement to Man Gets Sober, because I think Man Gets Sober is the story of getting sober, and then the book that I've written is maybe more about, well, okay, so what can you do with your life now that you've taken that away to optimize it? But in the book, I've written about how I have resolved some of those anxiety issues, some of those public speaking issues. Like I said, it doesn't go away completely, but in your example of that meeting, when the focus is on you, the booze isn't there. That anxiety, that sort of your brain isn't working. You can't think properly. You're not as sharp because you didn't
Yeah.
sleep, because the alcohol has fucked with your brain. So yeah, look, it's worked for us. It's worked for me and Matt. If it's worked for us, it can definitely work for you. It's
Yeah.
such a blessing. It's such a gift, a superpower to just take this shit out of the equation and give yourself an opportunity at doing life without booze. Is I don't know, it's something everybody should definitely try, because it's amazing. So look, okay, good conversation. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Um, I think we'll leave it there. We've got plenty more to get onto the next time. So thanks everybody very much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube, listening if you're on Spotify. Please help us out with all the usual tips, comments, shares, whatever you have to do to try to get this content in front of anybody else that might benefit from it. As I always say, never quit quitting. Thanks again. Until the next time, it's a bye from me.
Bye from me too.